Imagine a little boy growing up in the rough housing projects of Brooklyn, New York. He watches his father struggle to hold jobs, often injured, uninsured, and broken not just in body but in spirit. There's no luxury, no safety net, no silver spoon. Just a quiet fire inside that whispers, life can be better than this. This is the true story of Howard Schultz, the man who didn't invent coffee, but who reimagined how the world drinks it. From poverty to prestige, from obscurity to global icon, Howard's story isn't just about Starbucks. It's about vision, grit, and a relentless belief in something better. Before Starbucks was a symbol of success, comfort, and community, it was a tiny coffee store in Seattle, hardly known beyond its neighborhood. What turned that humble shop into a worldwide phenomenon wasn't just coffee. It was a dream, and a man brave enough to chase it. Howard Schultz was born in 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. His family lived in the Bayview housing projects, a place where opportunity didn't knock often. His father worked a string of low-paying blue-collar jobs: truck driver, factory worker, even diaper delivery man. But no matter the job, the outcome was the same: no stability, no health care, and no respect. Howard was deeply affected by his father's suffering. One incident stuck with him forever, when his dad slipped on ice and broke his hip. He lost his job. There was no workers' comp, no medical leave, just pain and poverty. Howard was just 7, but even then, he knew this wasn't fair. No one should feel so disposable. That moment planted a seed in him, a seed of purpose. Despite financial struggles, Howard saw sports as his escape. He excelled in football and earned an athletic scholarship to Northern Michigan University, a rare path for someone from his background. But he wasn't content just surviving. He was hungry to thrive. He became the first in his family to graduate from college. After school, he worked various jobs, including selling Xerox machines door to door. He was good at it, smart, ambitious, but he was also restless. He wanted more than just sales. He wanted meaning. Then came the job that changed everything. In 1981, while working for a Swedish company that sold kitchenware, Howard noticed something unusual. A small retailer in Seattle kept ordering more and more drip coffee makers. That store was Starbucks. Back then, Starbucks was just a local store run by 3 partners: Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Boker. They sold high-quality beans and coffee equipment, but they didn't brew coffee. No lattes, no pastries, no cozy music, just beans. Howard flew to Seattle to visit the store. The moment he stepped inside, he felt something powerful. The smell, the warmth, the passion. It wasn't flashy, but it was authentic. He knew something was there. He tried to convince Starbucks to hire him. They said no, but Howard was persistent. A year later, they finally offered him a job as director of marketing. He was 29, young, excited, and filled with ideas that would soon disrupt everything. In 1983, Starbucks sent Howard to Milan, Italy, to attend a housewares trade show. But it wasn't the trade show that left a mark. It was the cafes. Italy's coffee culture was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Tiny espresso bars on every corner. Baristas who knew your name. People pausing to talk, laugh, connect all over coffee. These cafes weren't just places to grab a drink. They were community hubs, social sanctuaries. And Howard had an epiphany. He didn't just want to sell coffee. He wanted to bring that experience, the Italian cafe culture, to America. He came back from Italy energized, brimming with vision. He pitched the idea to the Starbucks owners. Let's serve espresso drinks. Let's create spaces where people come not just to buy, but to belong. But the founders resisted. They didn't want Starbucks to become a cafe. They feared it would dilute the brand. They loved the simplicity of selling beans, not brewing beverages. Howard was frustrated, inspired, torn. He knew his idea would work, but he couldn't do it at Starbucks. Not yet. In 1985, Howard made a bold decision. He left Starbucks. With the help of investors, he raised $400,000. Not an easy task for a young man from the projects, and started his own coffee bar. He called it Il Giornale, named after an Italian newspaper. The goal was clear: replicate the Italian espresso bar experience in the U.S. Il Giornale was more than a coffee shop. It was a new kind of third place. Not home, not work, but somewhere in between. Warm lighting, classical music, friendly baristas. It was a place to slow down, connect, breathe, and it worked. Customers loved it. The line stretched out the door. People weren't just drinking coffee. They were forming habits, building community. Howard had proven his vision, but fate had another twist waiting. In 1987, the original Starbucks owners decided to sell the company. It wasn't profitable. They were tired. They wanted out. Howard knew this was his chance, not just to open more cafes, but to own the brand that started it all. He scrambled to raise the money. It was a race against time. With help from investors, including Bill Gates Sr., father of the Microsoft founder, Howard raised $3.8 million and bought Starbucks. He merged it with Il Giornale. Now, at last, he had both the name and the dream. Starbucks was reborn, not as a bean retailer, but as a coffee experience. From 1987 onward, Howard Schultz led Starbucks with a mission that went beyond profit. He wanted to build a company that respected people, baristas, customers, and communities. He offered health care even to part-time employees, a move almost unheard of in corporate America. He created stock options for every worker, calling them partners instead of employees. Why? Because he remembered his father, broken and discarded. And he swore he'd build a company his dad never got the chance to work for. Starbucks expanded rapidly, but carefully. By 1992, it went public. The stock soared. But Howard wasn't chasing Wall Street. He was chasing impact. Each store was designed to feel local, not like a chain. He focused on ethical sourcing, on training baristas, on creating an emotional connection with every cup. It wasn't just about caffeine. It was about care. Howard Schultz's journey from a broken home in Brooklyn to buying Starbucks was filled with hardship, hope, and vision. He didn't just change how America drank coffee. He changed what coffee meant. He believed in something bigger than a beverage. He believed in creating spaces where people could feel seen, heard, and valued. And he built it one cup, one store, one relationship at a time. But the story doesn't end here. Because as Starbucks grew, so did its challenges, from market crashes to public criticism, union battles to global competition. We'll explore how Starbucks navigated those storms, how Howard stepped down and returned, and how the brand evolved in a digital world. In just a few short years, Starbucks had transformed from a single shop in Seattle into a national sensation. But Howard Schultz wasn't done. He believed Starbucks could become a global brand, not just a place to buy coffee, but a movement, a culture, a daily ritual around the world. But success, as history shows, is never a straight path. It comes with setbacks, resistance, criticism, and change. This part of the story takes us into the expansion years, the soaring highs, the missteps, the economic collapse that nearly broke the brand, and the bold return of the man who started it all. It's a story of leadership, values, and a reminder that even giants must pause, reflect, and rebuild. By the early 1990s, Starbucks was opening new stores rapidly across the United States. But Howard Schultz never believed in growing just for the sake of it. Growth, in his mind, had to be purpose-driven. Starbucks was built on 3 pillars: premium quality, human connection, respect for employees, partners. Every decision was measured against these values. Baristas weren't just coffee servers. They were storytellers, hosts, community builders. Each store aimed to be a familiar neighborhood space, one where people from all walks of life could find a moment of peace, a warm drink, and sometimes even a sense of belonging. In 1992, Starbucks went public. It had just 165 stores then. Within a decade, it would have over 10,000. Investors saw numbers, but Howard saw people. He often said, "We're not in the coffee business serving people. We're in the people business serving coffee." That mindset defined everything. In 1996, Starbucks took its biggest risk yet, opening a store outside the U.S. in Tokyo, Japan. It was a bold move. Coffee wasn't as culturally rooted in Japan as tea was. But Howard and his team didn't just export an American idea. They studied Japanese preferences. They localized the menu. They respected the culture. The Tokyo store opened to overwhelming success. People lined up for hours. The same happened in the UK, China, Middle East, and beyond. Every new country brought new challenges, different tastes, customs, and languages. But Starbucks adapted. Its coffee shops became cultural bridges, familiar yet tailored. Global success, however, brought new pressures. By the early 2000s, Starbucks was opening 6 new stores every day. The company became a symbol of modern urban life. It was in malls, airports, college campuses, and even grocery stores. But critics began asking, was Starbucks growing too fast? Was it losing its soul? Some former fans started calling it corporate and overexposed. Others accused it of pushing out local cafes. And inside the company, the culture was shifting. The intense focus on rapid expansion meant less time for training, less focus on customer experience, and less warmth. Espresso machines were redesigned, faster but taller. Now, baristas couldn't make eye contact while brewing. Stores began to feel more transactional. Howard Schultz noticed, and he didn't like what he saw. In 2000, he stepped down as CEO, handing the reins to Orrin Smith and later Jim Donald. Howard became chairman, but remained deeply involved. Still, Starbucks continued to grow rapidly. By 2007, it had over 15,000 stores in 44 countries. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. The 2008 global financial crisis hit Starbucks hard. Consumers cut spending. Traffic slowed. Starbucks closed 600 stores and laid off thousands of employees, something Howard had always tried to avoid. Stock prices plunged. Morale dropped. Customers complained about long lines, poor service, and inconsistent drinks. The brand had become a giant, but a tired one. Howard Schultz watched in silence until he couldn't. He returned as CEO in 2008, not to take a victory lap, but to rescue the soul of the company he built. Howard came back with a simple but powerful message. We lost our way, but we're going to get it back. His first act as CEO, he closed all 7,100 U.S. stores for one afternoon. Why? To retrain every barista on how to make the perfect espresso. To Wall Street, it looked crazy. Millions of dollars lost. But to Howard, it was necessary. A bold signal that quality mattered more than profit. He made another shocking move, shutting down 900 underperforming stores and halting new store openings. He trimmed the fat, not the heart. He invested in technology, introducing mobile ordering, customer rewards, and better systems. But more importantly, he reinvested in people. He re-emphasized partner care, bringing back benefits, education programs, and internal promotions. He spoke directly to employees, visited stores, and reminded everyone why Starbucks existed. The comeback was powerful. Within 2 years, Starbucks was profitable again. Stock rebounded. Customer satisfaction soared. And baristas, often the most overlooked, felt seen once more. Howard also saw Starbucks as a platform for doing good. He pushed for fair trade coffee, partnering with small farmers in developing countries. Starbucks launched programs to ensure ethical sourcing, sustainability, and transparency. The company helped provide clean water in Africa, funded education for thousands of employees through the Starbucks College Achievement Plan, and advocated for racial equality and LGBTQ+ rights. Howard even made bold political stances, criticizing gridlock in Washington, supporting veterans, and calling for more corporate responsibility. Of course, not all efforts were applauded. Starbucks faced backlash at times for its holiday cups, its open bathroom policy, or its stance on social issues. But Howard never shied away. In his view, a business could be both profitable and principled. As Starbucks recovered from the 2008 crash, the world was changing fast. The rise of smartphones, social media, and online ordering transformed customer expectations. People wanted convenience, speed, and customization. Starbucks adapted quickly. It launched the Starbucks mobile app, which by 2015 became one of the most used mobile payment platforms in the U.S. Customers could now order and pay with a few taps, skip lines, and earn rewards. The brand began to experiment: drive-thrus, nitro cold brew, plant-based milk, and even blockchain technology to trace coffee origins. Starbucks was no longer just a coffee company. It was a tech-savvy, lifestyle-driven, global powerhouse. And at its center was a man who had once lived in public housing, now shaping how the world started its mornings. In 2017, after nearly 4 decades with Starbucks, Howard Schultz stepped down as executive chairman. It was the end of an era, but not the end of his story. He hinted at a possible run for president, driven by frustration with political division and a belief in compassion-driven capitalism. Though he eventually chose not to run, his voice remained powerful. In his farewell note to employees, Howard wrote, "It has been my honor to be a small part of this journey. Yours is the future. You carry the mission forward." Howard Schultz built more than a coffee company. He built a philosophy, one that believed in dignity for workers, respect for community, and the power of dreams. He proved that success doesn't mean abandoning values, that growth doesn't have to cost people their humanity, and that even in a competitive world, kindness can win. But Starbucks still had more to face: competition, controversy, and a pandemic that would test everything again. We explore the recent years, the global pandemic's impact, the rise of union movements, new leadership, and what the future of Starbucks looks like in a divided digital world. We witnessed how a boy from a Brooklyn housing project turned a small coffee shop into a global empire. We explored the rise of Starbucks, its expansion across continents, its near collapse during the financial crisis, and Howard Schultz's dramatic return to restore its soul. But even after the revival, the story didn't end. Because business, especially at a global scale, is like a living organism. It must grow, adapt, and evolve. And when the world shifts, as it did in the past decade, even a giant like Starbucks faces hard truths, urgent questions, and the challenge of staying true to its roots while preparing for the future. The era of digital disruption, social division, global health crises, and rising worker activism. It's the story of how Starbucks responded to a world that changed, almost overnight. After Howard Schultz stepped down as executive chairman in 2018, leadership passed to Kevin Johnson, a former tech executive with experience at Microsoft and Juniper Networks. His appointment wasn't random. Starbucks was preparing for its future in the digital age. Under Kevin's leadership, Starbucks leaned deeper into technology. They enhanced the mobile ordering system, expanded delivery partnerships with Uber Eats and DoorDash, and improved drive-thru experiences, all steps that would unexpectedly prove critical in the years to come. At the same time, Starbucks faced intensifying competition. Independent coffee shops were booming, boutique brands were rising, and even giants like Dunkin' and McDonald's were investing in espresso and cold brew. And while Starbucks remained profitable, there were whispers. Was it becoming too corporate again? Too automated? Too distant from the warmth and connection it once promised? Then, in 2020, the world was hit by a storm no one saw coming. The pandemic shut down cities. Cafes emptied. Streets fell silent. For the first time in decades, people couldn't gather at Starbucks or anywhere else. In March 2020, Starbucks temporarily closed over 8,000 U.S. locations to protect workers and customers. It was a massive move, impacting thousands of employees and millions of customers. But the company didn't disappear. It adapted fast. Stores reopened with new safety protocols. The mobile app was updated for touchless pickup. Curbside and drive-thru became essential. The company accelerated digital innovation years ahead of schedule. Behind the scenes, Starbucks prioritized its workers. Partners received catastrophe pay, extended health care, and emotional wellness support. Store managers were empowered to make local decisions, balancing safety with service. The message was clear: we're in this together. By late 2020, Starbucks had not only survived the pandemic, it had reinvented itself for the new world. Yet, something else had been quietly brewing: a wave of activism, frustration, and a demand for change from within. For decades, Starbucks had been praised for its employee benefits, healthcare, stock options, and education. But by 2021, many partners felt that something was missing: a stronger voice. Workers in Buffalo, New York, took a bold step. They formed the first-ever Starbucks union. It shocked the company. Within months, similar movements emerged in dozens of cities, from Boston to Phoenix, Seattle to Memphis. What were the workers asking for? More consistent hours, higher wages, improved safety protocols, respect and fairness. Starbucks, known for progressive values, now found itself in a national labor battle. While the company said it respected workers' rights, it also opposed unionization, arguing that direct communication was more effective. The debate grew heated. Legal battles, protests, media coverage. Some stores voted for unions. Others didn't. But the message was clear. The Starbucks workforce was changing, and so were their expectations. Howard Schultz, once again, returned, this time as interim CEO in 2022, to address the growing crisis. At age 68, Howard came back not to save profits, but to recenter values. He visited stores, sat with partners, listened. He made some bold decisions. Suspended share buybacks to reinvest in partners. Promised higher wages, better training, and improved store safety. Reaffirmed Starbucks' commitment to innovation and human connection. But he also held firm. Starbucks would not support unionization. His belief? We can build a company where all voices are heard, without a third party. It was controversial. Some admired his passion. Others criticized his stance. But no one doubted his love for the brand, or his desire to make it better. In early 2023, Howard stepped down for the final time, handing the leadership to Laxman Narasimhan, a former PepsiCo executive, signaling a new era once again. As of 2025, Starbucks operates in over 80 countries with more than 38,000 stores worldwide. It's more than a coffee brand. It's a lifestyle, a global community, and a platform for impact. Some of the company's latest initiatives include greener stores, over 10,000 locations certified for sustainable design, coffee traceability, allowing customers to learn where their beans come from, AI-powered personalization, recommending drinks based on your habits, inclusive hiring programs targeting veterans, refugees, and formerly incarcerated individuals. Starbucks continues to be a cultural symbol of ambition, identity, and connection. But it's also a reflection of the world around it, changing, questioning, growing. Howard Schultz may have left the company, but his story is etched into its foundation. He didn't just build a brand. He built a philosophy. Business can be a force for good if we lead with our conscience. His journey inspired millions, not just entrepreneurs, but anyone who grew up feeling unseen, unheard, or stuck. He proved that circumstances don't define destiny, that with vision, integrity, and compassion, one can build something that matters, even from nothing. Howard went on to write books, speak around the world, and advocate for a more just and humane approach to capitalism. His legacy isn't measured by money, but by the millions of people he uplifted along the way. The Starbucks story is more than a tale of coffee. It's a mirror of our society, its hopes, its conflicts, and its search for meaning. It's a story about how a young boy watched his father be broken by a system and vowed to create something better. A place where workers are treated with dignity. A business that listens. A cup that connects people. It's about rising, falling, and rising again. And at its heart, it reminds us of something timeless. Success is not the absence of struggle. It is the decision to keep walking through it with values intact. Moral of the story. A cup of coffee may seem simple, but behind that cup can lie a vision, a community, and a dream born from pain. Howard Schultz taught us that business isn't just about money, it's about meaning. When leaders lead with heart, companies don't just grow, they inspire. And in a world where people often feel disconnected, undervalued, or overlooked, a single store, a single voice, a single dream can still change the world.